15 years ago, my closest friend became pregnant by my partner of 3 years, and my family was aware but kept it from me, so I left home. Now, after 15 years of no contact, my 33-year-old self and my 59-year-old mother insist I reconcile with both my ex-boyfriend and former best friend. This is a lengthy narrative that commenced around 15 years ago and had a significant impact on my life, so please be patient with me. When I was 18 and in my senior year of high school, I genuinely thought my life was heading in the right direction. I lived with my parents and 4 siblings, 23M, 22M, 20F, and 14F, and spent most of my days with my best friend Ashley and my boyfriend of 3 years, Kyle. Both Ashley's and Kyle's parents were close friends with my parents, so I had known both of them since we were infants. We celebrated holidays together, attended each other's birthdays, and visited frequently since we resided in the same town. Ashley had been my friend for 18 years, and she was genuinely the person I confided in about everything. Sometimes our parents would joke that we were attached at the hip since we were inseparable. I had been dating Kyle for the past 3 years, believing him to be the love of my life and the one I would marry one day. We were quite serious and even discussed marriage after he completed college. He was a sophomore at that time. Although I planned on attending university, I was quite content with the thought of marrying Kyle and being a stay-at-home mother. My parents adored Kyle and supported our relationship. I was genuinely happy. I think I should mention here that my sister was also dating Kyle's brother, and all our siblings were very close. One day at the start of the school year, I noticed that Ashley was unusually melancholic and distant. After some probing, she confessed that she was pregnant. I was very shocked because I thought she had broken up with her boyfriend some time ago and didn't know she had been with anyone else. I inquired who the father was, and she didn't want to discuss it but hinted that the ex might be the father. She was extremely upset, so I dropped the subject and comforted her. I was present when she informed her family, and although her parents were disappointed, they pledged to support her in whatever decision she made. They pressured her to reveal the father's name, but she refused and made me swear to keep it a secret. They were unaware she had a boyfriend at one time. I supported her throughout the following 9 months. I accompanied her to ultrasounds and doctor's appointments, stood by her when she was bullied at school for being pregnant, helped set up the nursery, cared for her when she was sick or feeling low, organized a baby shower for her, shopped with her, and even attended parenting classes with her. We chose names together, and she asked me to be in the delivery room with her. I saw the pregnancy was greatly affecting her emotionally and physically, and I tried to support her in every possible way. She was my closest friend, always there for me, and I cared for her deeply. About 2 weeks before her due date, I went to the mall to run errands and encountered her ex. Despite my promise not to confront him, concern for my friend's emotional state overwhelmed me, and I approached him. I expressed my anger, telling him he was a piece of __ for abandoning his ex while she was pregnant and not caring for his unborn child. He was startled and claimed he had no idea what I was referring to. Ashley had never informed him about the pregnancy, and when I mentioned she was 9 months pregnant, he insisted it was impossible for him to be the father since they had broken up over a year ago and hadn't been intimate since. I was perplexed but apologized for yelling at him in the middle of the mall. Then he became mocking, said some hurtful things, and suggested I should ask Ashley's friend Kyle if he is the father. I didn't really contemplate his remarks in any significant manner. Kyle and Ashley have been companions their entire lives. We were always very close due to our parents' relationship, but they never exhibited any hint of being anything more. That evening, my younger sister and I were getting ready for a movie night. I started ranting to her about confronting Ashley's ex and his comments. My sister, usually very outspoken, became silent and didn't really respond to anything I said. After a bit, she excused herself and went to the bathroom. I decided to grab some snacks and went downstairs to the kitchen where I overheard my younger sister berating my mother. This part of my memory is quite vague as I was overwhelmed with emotions. My sister told my mom about me running into Ashley's ex and his words and expressed that she no longer wanted to keep from me the reality that Kyle was Ashley's baby's father. I was stunned, absolutely stunned. I stumbled into the kitchen and demanded an explanation. Both my mom and my sister turned pale when they saw me, and my sister started crying profusely. My sister explained some details. I also learned from others later that towards the end of the summer break, Kyle and Ashley attended the same house party, got drunk, and slept together. Ashley became pregnant and informed Kyle, but they were both ashamed and terrified to tell me. They also didn't notify their parents. However, Ashley couldn't keep the secret and confided in her parents, who informed Kyle's parents and subsequently mine as well. This all occurred when Ashley was in her first trimester. By her second trimester, all of my siblings, along with Kyle's and Ashley's siblings, were aware of this. Everyone except for me. I simply cannot describe the way I felt. I was physically ill for the next 3 days, and I couldn't talk to anyone. My parents were regretful but explained that they didn't want to see me hurt or damage everyone's relationships. I did not communicate with Kyle or Ashley, although they incessantly texted and called me and even came to my home. I refused to meet them. At one point, Kyle's mother visited our house, and my mom allowed her into my room while I was lying in bed, still feeling ill and emotionally exhausted from the betrayal. She attempted to persuade me to forgive them and emphasized how Ashley and the baby needed me. I remained silent. 2 weeks later, Ashley went into labor. I discovered from my parents that she had a difficult delivery, lost a significant amount of blood, and required an emergency C-section. Kyle, it seems, was present at the birth. I was devastated and inconsolable because of the betrayal by both, as I had planned to be there and now physically and emotionally couldn't. I had eagerly anticipated this moment for months. For so many reasons, my older sister rushed to the hospital to be with her boyfriend. My other siblings were not at home, leaving me alone with my parents. All I wanted was to lie in my bed or cuddle with my mom and cry out all my emotions. My mom received a call from Ashley's mom. She came to my room and informed me that she and Dad were going to the hospital. I was bewildered and asked her to stay with me. She mentioned that Ashley's parents needed all the support they could get and that we would discuss everything later. I tried to convince her not to go and expressed that I also needed their support, but she told me not to be selfish, and they left. I was left alone at home, and I just couldn't fathom what had transpired in the past few weeks. I couldn't believe that my parents would go and support someone who hurt me so deeply while I was also here suffering. Am I really selfish to think like that? I don't know when, but my sadness turned into rage, the kind I had never experienced before. In a fit of combined emotions and feelings of betrayal, I started packing my bags and decided to leave home. It didn't take long, but I began having second thoughts and just sat in the living room feeling empty. After some time, I got a message from my sister. The message said that Ashley had given birth to a healthy girl and that both were fine. She attached a picture of the newborn and mentioned they named her Sarah, the name Ashley and I picked some months ago. She sent another message later telling me that my parents, along with Ashley's and Kyle's parents, were heading to a bar in town to celebrate. I don't recall much after that. My memory is quite hazy. I left, boarded a train, and stayed at a hostel in Phoenix for a period. I found a job at a store and planned to complete high school there. My parents, siblings, Kyle, and Ashley tried to reach me. My mom left me a frantic voicemail demanding I return. They also reported me as a missing person, but nothing came of it since I was 18. Soon afterward, I met Dean. He also resided in Phoenix and had a troubled relationship with his family. We bonded quickly and became friends. He was a great help during that period. I struggled a lot as I had no clue how to take care of myself or be quite literally an adult. He introduced me to his circle of friends, helped me finish high school, and I moved in with him and his friends. Dean supported me in dealing with my pain. I really struggled at one point and had some regrets. I wished to see a therapist, but definitely couldn't afford it. He stood by me through everything, and I doubt I would have managed without him. We began dating. After a year, Dean inherited some money from his grandfather and chose to move across the country to a big city. Though we hadn't been together long, he asked me to join him. I was hesitant since we both had significant emotional baggage, and I was still very insecure. But I went. We moved, got jobs, and tried to make it. Soon after my 21st birthday, we decided to get married. It was a wild, spontaneous decision, but we pulled it off. I signed up for university, and Dean assisted me with the expenses. He started a business that flourished, and we managed to live more comfortably. I attended university and also had a part-time job to contribute. We faced our ups and downs but managed to get through. After university, I began working at his company, and together we gradually expanded it. Reflecting on it now, I doubt I was truly in love with Dean when we tied the knot. I cared for him, but I wasn't head over heels. However, he was always there for me without conditions, and today I couldn't love him more. He is the love of my life. We've been married for 12 years and have a 2-year-old son and a 6-month-old son. At times, I regretted leaving my family behind, but returning was not an option. It was very painful. I felt like my parents chose Ashley and Kyle over me. I visited a therapist at 25 and tried to process my feelings. Last year, at the onset of the pandemic, I received an email from a 14-year-old girl named Evelyn. She mentioned she was my niece, my older sister's child with Kyle's brother. She knew about me and wanted to connect. Although hesitant at first, I did exchange some emails with her. I should note she was unaware of what happened 15 years ago, so our conversations remained innocent. We discussed her school interests, and she updated me about my family. I found out I had 10 nieces and nephews. I also learned that Kyle married Ashley 4 years after I left and had 2 sons besides Sarah. My parents maintained a relationship with Kyle's and Ashley's family, and to me, it seemed like my family continued their regular life despite my absence. Evelyn tried to discuss the past, but I didn't feel it was appropriate to explain things to her, so I simply stated that relationships evolve and life events cause people to part ways. We continued communicating sporadically for almost a year. In her email this January, she explained how the pandemic significantly impacted her entire family and that my parents were struggling to keep their home while both my brothers lost their jobs and had difficulty managing expenses. I was amazed at her knowledge of this, considering she was only 14, but the hardships were also causing friction between her parents. I began experiencing a lot of guilt and regret, and having just had my baby, my emotions were running high. I spoke to my husband, and he was very supportive, assuring me he would stand by any decision I made. Financially, we are stable, and the pandemic did not heavily impact our finances. We may not be wealthy, but we live comfortably. After gathering more details and discussing with Dean, we decided to assist my parents with their house. A week ago, we traveled back to my home state. It had been 15 years since I last saw my family. I felt a myriad of emotions, including regret, past pains, and feelings of betrayal. My parents appeared relieved to see me. It was a very strange day. We had a long conversation and agreed to attempt some sort of polite relationship. It had been so long that I felt very awkward around them. Sometimes they seemed like strangers. Dean and I spent a week there continuing our conversation, and I genuinely believed we were on the path toward a friendly, albeit distant, relationship. But then my mom started insisting I have a sit-down conversation with Kyle and Ashley. She expressed her desire for things to return to the way they were. I told her I refused to talk to them. Although I have moved on, I have no connection with them now and do not want to reopen old wounds. I explained to her that I am willing to try and build a relationship with my parents as they are my family, and I have to care deeply for my niece, but I do not want anything to do with Kyle, Ashley, or their family. I never demanded that they end their friendships, but I don't want one. Dean supports me. My mom called me selfish and said I simply must try to mend our relationship. I told her I won't compromise and that it's up to her to decide if she wants to have a relationship with me. She said okay, but 2 days later I received a call from Kyle's mom. I didn't give her my number and she insisted that I talk with Kyle and Ashley because my return strained their relationship and affected their emotional well-being. I hung up. I called my mom and confronted her. Apparently, she gave that woman my number to mend our family bonds. I told her she is choosing them over me again. She cried and yelled at me that I am selfish and that she just wants her family back. I hung up. It's been days since I spoke to any of them, although my mom and Kyle's mom keep calling. Although I think I am right and believe I should prioritize my well-being and the happiness of my husband, who has been behind me 100% and even told my mom off and my sons, I am starting to have some regrets. I don't know if I should listen to my mom and speak to Ashley and Kyle. I question if I was overreacting 15 years ago. I'm questioning if I am truly being selfish for not actively trying to repair the relationship. I would really appreciate any advice or opinion on what to do in this situation. Suddenly, I am questioning the entire course of my life. I am so lost and I don't know what to do. Update. My gosh, it's been 2 years since I posted this. A lot of people have been asking me for an update. First of all, I want to thank all of the wonderful people who have been sending me updates and lovely messages. I'm truly grateful. A lot of things have happened in the last few years, not all great. Without making these 100 pages long, I never mentioned my little sister in my original post. Her relationship with my parents deteriorated after I moved out, and she cut off all contact with them when she turned 20. I got her number through our older sister, and although it was uncomfortable initially since it had been 15 years, we began communicating again. She was deeply upset with me for leaving. A lot transpired in her life, and it was far from easy. She now has a toddler and a baby, and I must admit that the kids have played a significant role in mending our bond. She is my closest friend, and we converse daily. Regarding my other siblings, I maintain regular contact with both my brothers, though we aren't particularly close. My older sister and I have a harmonious relationship now, but last year we went through an extended period without speaking, as she is married to Kyle's brother. It was challenging for her to handle all our family and in-law drama. We are on good terms now, and I cherish my relationship with my nieces and nephews. I did not attend my niece's birthday celebration because it felt too overwhelming for me. Now about my parents. This part is somewhat difficult for me to recount, and at the time it felt like I was reliving those terrible emotions I had at 18. My mom didn't relent in her constant nagging about me not communicating with Kyle and Ashley. Her calls persisted for months, even after I returned home, almost reaching the level of emotional manipulation. She blamed me for not honoring her wishes regarding her friendships, health issues, and even accused me of keeping her grandchildren away from her. Last June, after the birth of my daughter, it seemed like she completely lost control. What I mean by that is over 100 calls a day, messages every minute to harass me about trivial matters, and sending updates about people I didn't care to learn about. When she started harassing Dean, I reached my limit. Fearing to block her, I decided to talk to my father. This was possibly the first genuine heart-to-heart conversation we had in the past 17 years. I was emotionally exhausted, worn out from taking care of 3 children, and simply overwhelmed by everything. I probably shared all my sentiments and feelings with him. I don't know what happened afterward. He doesn't talk about it much. Her calls gradually stopped, and something else must have occurred because in August he filed for a divorce. My father and I keep in regular communication, although I don't think we'll ever be back to normal. Mom is heartbroken. In August, her calls became frantic, and apparently not just with me. I've changed my number since then, and as of February, she has not been able to contact me. One of my brothers told me that she struggles with anxiety and depression and lost many friends. I don't really know whether she still maintains a relationship with Kyle and Ashley's family. I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore, nor do I want her near my children. The things she has said to me and about my husband, whom she really doesn't know after 15 years of no contact, are crazy. Although I regret not having a mom, I feel that trying and fighting to mend the little remnants of our relationship would be a waste of my emotional energy and just pure torture. As for Kyle and Ashley, I've received some calls from Kyle's mom. As I mentioned in my original post, I blocked her, and no further calls have been received from anyone. I really don't know what they are doing or where they are. I've had no contact with them. The only significant event is that in August, when everything went downhill, my brother-in-law Kyle's brother brought me a letter supposedly written by Ashley. I haven't opened it and I'm unsure if I want to. I feel like I've moved on from them, but on the other hand, I'm curious about what she has to say after so many years. However, that could bring back negative emotions. I'm doing okay now with my children and Dean, who is a real trooper in all of this. I'm trying to focus on my family, and I really hope that this is all behind me. To all of you, thank you again. If anything else happens, I'll try to update sooner. Update. Dear everyone, I have no idea if anyone will see this, but over the past few months since I posted my update, I've received many messages with advice and words of support. I have no way of thanking you, but know that your words truly mean a lot to me. I try to reply to everyone, but it sometimes takes me a while. A lot of questions have been asked in these messages, and I can't answer them all at this time. I plan on updating soon. Just to quickly answer the most common ones. I have not read the letter yet. Soon after updating, I restarted therapy, and Dean and I decided that it would be best if I gave the letter to my therapist and let him decide when and if I am ever ready to read it. I have not spoken to my mom since the update. I've received messages on Facebook from her and Ashley's mom, which is a first. The latter I didn't even read. I've since deactivated my Facebook for the time being. Neither Kyle nor Ashley tried to contact me via any social media. The only thing I know is that Kyle was asking my brother-in-law for my address or number, but my brother-in-law refused them. That's when Ashley gave him the letter. My brother-in-law is in no contact with his family at the moment. They are separated, according to my brother-in-law, but he does not know whether they are divorced or not. Last week, my dad was in town. He does not know my address and has never been to my house. For the first time in almost 2 decades, we had an open, honest conversation. I have to admit it was a lot, and I was not well for a few days afterward, but it was necessary. I learned a lot about my mom. A lot of you tried to imply there must have been something in her past to make her the way she is, and the time between them learning Ashley was pregnant and my return 2 years ago. It's a lot to unpack, and I'll probably be in therapy for a long time. It's a lot, really, so I'll have to write a separate update. Also, my little sister was not at fault, and I never blamed her for keeping the secret from me. She was a teenager, and she knew it was wrong, but she was under immense pressure from our mom. After I left, her life became hellish, and our mom became unbearable, blaming her for many things. Once again, thank you for your supportive and encouraging words. Many of you sent messages for Dean as well, and he has read them. You are right. He is the best, and I likely wouldn't be where I am today without him. Please cherish your families if they are there for you through thick and thin. Of course, call your parents and siblings and tell them how much you love them. In moments like these, we realize how much we undervalue the good people in our lives. Thank you, and I hope you are all well. Update. Hello. Ashley was never really bullied before. It started after she became pregnant. Our state is quite conservative, so it wasn't well received that she was pregnant, unmarried, and without a partner. There was no physical violence, but people were quite mean and kept reminding her of her mistakes. I don't know if people knew who the father was. I always just assumed it was because she was pregnant. I've learned from my dad that apparently they weren't hooking up before, but that could be a lie. She did like him, so it wasn't an awkward, drunken one-night stand with just anyone. Knowing this fact would probably have crushed me back then, but I sort of assumed without being told her ex suspected it. They didn't date anymore after the party, but I think he also never liked Kyle. so seeing them together was a red flag. I wasn't a party enthusiast, and neither was she, but I don't know if they just went that day. I don't remember if they went together or separately, but I'd assume the latter. She did have other friends after all who enjoyed nights out. The drunkenness part, I really don't remember them being heavy drinkers. At least I never saw her intoxicated to the degree that she was reckless or experienced a loss of memory, so I never really believed that claim much. But I wasn't there. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Drunk or sober, it was a betrayal. I read some of Kyle's messages back then. I never answered any of the calls or anything. I never spoke to them after I learned he was the father. I kind of regret that now. Maybe it would have been more advantageous for everyone if I had given them a good earful, expressed all the pain, and then gone no contact. But I just wasn't in the right frame of mind, and I was often unwell back then. This current letter is from her, and I haven't read it yet. At this point, I believe that my mom is mourning the loss of a close family friendship unit that we had when I was younger and some other relationships. She still has yet to realize that none of her 5 children speak to or see her. None of her grandchildren see her. None of us, as far as I know, communicate with her. That in itself would be the end for me. I can't imagine what emotional state she must be in. We all agree that she needs psychological or psychiatric help. She refused. Dad and eldest brother tried, but you can't persuade someone like that.